Well, good morning and welcome once again to Elevenses. Apologies for being a little bit late on show this morning. I had some last minute problems with the microphone, all set up nicely, and suddenly it stopped working altogether. So hopefully you can hear me this morning. I'm working off the microphone on the laptop itself. So do give me a quick shout if the audio is iffy. I'm afraid there's not much I can do about it. The microphone setting is turned up to the max, but it is at least recording. Anyway, so sorry for being late on show. It's Wednesday. No, it's not. It's Sunday, isn't it? No, I haven't got a clue what day of the week it is either. It's show number 437. It's June the 16th, so we're in the middle of the first month of summer. Clive's looked in and says, can hear me okay. That's all right then, that's great. So what's in today's show? Well, again, a fairly packed show. MAGA saying that election manifestos have nothing for bikers. The Blyth, the gigafactory, has been wound up in the High Court. There's an interesting video gone viral, which shows a police driver waving down a filtering rider and telling him to stop. Roundabouts, how do we design them? I mentioned over the, I think it shows earlier this year that roundabouts are an accident hotspot, which I have to admit I wasn't really aware of quite as much as they are anyway. And we'll have a look at a design for a roundabout abroad and ask if that actually is a particularly good design. We'll have a look at I think probably some of the toughest D-locks on sale. They've just gone on general release. They've been on pre-sale till now. We'll look at two new battery technologies too. Lithium extraction technique, which could cut the cost of lithium, and also metal air battery technology, more commonly used in hearing aids. But the construction of those batteries has always been very expensive. So a new technique there to make those batteries and make them cheaper, and they could be used for energy storage, which basically means that you can sort of smooth out the delivery of electricity to the grid that's recovered from or generated rather from solar and wind power, for example. FortNine, they often do some really good videos, but there's been one or two recently which have really not been very good at all, and we'll have a look at one of those. And this is all about a rotary disc valve. I'll show you more, explain more when we get to that story. We'll also have a look at some expanding panniers from SHAD, but they do unfortunately come at an expanded price. And then finally, we'll have a quick look at the story that I missed last week. Was about a new rider hub and whether it actually recognises that there should be a change of emphasis on the way we talk about the SMIDSY collision. So that's all coming up in today's show. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, any comments, do drop me a line. I'm always very interested to hear what you have to say. All right, so on with the first item then. Well, basically, this is a bit of housekeeping, really. In Wednesday's show, one of the things that I talked about was the MCN lockup having been broken into. They got away with 3 bikes from inside it. Now, as it happens, a few minutes time, I will be talking about a tough new bike lock that's moved out of the pre-order stage. It's now finally on sale. But first of all, there is an independent survey on motorcycle theft. Researcher Alex Parsons-Hulst is asking for your help. Now, the survey asks for views and experiences of motorcycle or scooter theft, and it starts by saying that recent research has suggested that theft or fear of theft is a major barrier to the wider use of motorcycles and scooters in the UK. Well, I have to say, I'm not personally aware of any such research, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. But I do have a bit of a reservation about the study by specifically asking for views on theft. It's likely that the research will actually be heavily slanted by people responding to talk about their own personal experiences of theft. It's likely that those who've never had a bike stolen or maybe not even tampered with possibly won't answer, and that can give a bit of a skewed impression of the answer that the survey is looking for. So, it's arguable that a blind survey, which didn't make it obvious that theft was the subject, might have been better, and that way the responses might have been a little less skewed, but maybe it would have made the survey too long. Anyway, swings and roundabouts, I guess. But basically, if anything can provoke a response to the problems of motorcycle theft, and particularly to the installation of some secure parking, and that is something I agree with Mag. None of the parties have mentioned that in their election campaigns. It has to be good. So if you have an experience or any thoughts you want to share, the place to go is just coming up in the comment stream, and hopefully you'll be able to read it on all channels. YouTube, isn't it? Hopefully it'll go up in the chat on YouTube there. Right, so that's the survey link. And one other piece of housekeeping before I go on with the news. You probably noticed it's the Euros again, 2024. Watch out for some live talk events over the next couple of weeks while the competition's going on. A bit of an antidote to the footballer. I've decided to make these free to attend with an option to make a donation in the hope that I'll get more people actually turning up for these. So keep your eyes peeled. The announcements will be on social media. Right, that is it for the intro. So what else have we got to talk about today? Well, the weather, of course, is the usual next item. There it is. Now, you probably noticed it's been a bit of a mixed bag of weather, and it's another few days of sunshine, showers with bands of heavier rain embedded at times. Now, in truth, it's nothing unusual for the time of year, but at least last week's unseasonably cold weather is turning warmer, first in the south, and then by midweek it'll be further north too. The temperatures will have risen from around 23 in the south up to about 16 further north, and it's been a pretty parky. I think it was 12 degrees one day earlier this week. So, what's the specifics? Well, this afternoon, cloud will build from the north. It will bring outbreaks of heavy rain moving southwards throughout the day. There will be the chance of the odd thunderstorm embedded in those showers. The south of England, though, should stay variably cloudy with just scattered showers. Now, Monday starts sunny and dry for much of England, but the showers will bubble up as the sun gets going. And northern Scotland and Northern Ireland will be cloudier, and there'll be some patchy rain moving in from the north. Tuesday sees further spells of rain in the far north. Elsewhere, it will be a sunny start, and the showers again will build, especially in northern England this time. Wednesday looks mostly dry, with a mix of sunshine and cloud across most of the country. Showers will possibly develop in the southeast and the far north. So again, mixed bag, not unusual for this time of year. Right, so on to the biking news, and what have we got for you today? Well, first story. This is the election creeping ever closer, thank the Lord. The Motorcycle Action Group, MAG, have announced that none of the general election manifestos offer motorcyclists much hope. They've reviewed 4 general election manifestos published this week, and Director of Campaigns and Political Engagement Colin Brown says they clearly show that the interests of riders are not in the heart of these 4 parties' policies. Well, seriously, what did they expect? I think there are some rather more important issues facing the nation than the convenience of motorcyclists. Doesn't mean we shouldn't campaign, but to expect it in the election manifesto is asking a bit much, isn't it, really? Right, the next story then. The long-running saga of the planned battery gigafactory up in the northeast of England that was supposed to create 3,000 jobs and supply batteries to EV manufacturers across the UK appears to be over before it ever got going. Now, British Volt, they were one of the former PM Boris Johnson's flagship projects. Despite injections of government cash, the startup company, which was due to produce batteries, it folded before the startup actually did much more than occupy the site. Now, The remnants of that company, after it went bust, were bought by Recharge Production UK. Now, this was a London registered subsidiary, an Australian based company. They agreed to pay 8.6 million to British Volts administrators EY last year for certain parts of the business, including access to the council owned site at the location of the former coal fired power station of Blyth. But it turned out that the Australian company were themselves dubious, and they were subject to police and tax investigations in Australia. And over here in the UK, despite their big plans, their own activities amounted to little more than missed deadlines on due payments. So Recharge UK, they have now been wound up in the High Court. This followed a petition by Tom Cowling. He was British Volt's chief governance officer, board director, and was apparently owed money under the deal. The chief insolvency and companies court judge Briggs, he ordered Recharge Production to be shut down and ordered Mr. Cowling's costs to be paid out of Recharge's assets. So that would appear to be the end of that sorry tale, as the site looks like it's set to become the home of a new data center. Now, a video has appeared on X, and it shows a Norfolk and Suffolk police driver preventing a motorcyclist from passing down the outside of a queue of traffic. I'll just put the link up so you can watch the whole thing. It seems that the situation involved, and I've got a photo that I can show you as well. Here it is. I'll just zoom in on that. You can just make out the bottom of a cone on the far right, and basically you're looking at a stretch of dual carriageway which has been coned off to reduce it down to a single lane. The motorcyclist was filtering down the outside of the queue of traffic, but inside the cones. And when he got to this point here, the policeman stuck his arm out the window and said, stop there. You're not filtering in one lane. Not happening. I'll sneak you on if I do. And the copper concludes with a sort of thumb pointing behind him saying, stay there. Now, I've no idea what sneak you on means, but I can guess. Anyway, the rider, who goes by the handle of Moto Tingle, says, it's given me food for thought. First, I didn't see the problem. There's lots of space and no white line or oncoming traffic, but I'm no legal eagle. And I have to say, I didn't see the problem either. An online magazine got Andrew Prendergast, who's the senior partner at White Dalton Motorcycles Listers, to comment. And this is what he said. It's perfectly legal to filter in England and Wales. Therefore, if the biker could have passed the police car without entering the closed lane and or causing the police car to swerve, there should have been absolutely no problem, in my opinion. But he pointed out that the rider did do the right thing when he complied when directed to do so by the constable. Basically, as soon as the policeman told him to stop, the policeman's now giving the motorcycle rider a direction, and to disobey that would be an offence. Now, it's possible, as Andrew pointed out, that the police officer knew something about what was up ahead causing the queue that the rider didn't know, but it also seems that, to me at least, since the rider wasn't travelling at excessive speed in his video or going the wrong side of the cones, I'd say the one-sided sort of shouty exchange is a pretty poor piece of engagement. I'd be interested in your views if you've managed to spot that video for yourself. Right, okay, so from policeman to roundabout. Now this is roundabout design. It's a sort of fairly tenuous link to that previous story, but I found this on LinkedIn under description: roundabouts are safe, easy to use, and save lives. So let me just give you absolutely a full screen view of that particular roundabout. There it is. Now, I spent several minutes here trying to work out exactly what it was that I was looking at, because I think it's anything but clear. Let me just zoom in on a portion of the roundabout here and make it a little bit more obvious what you're seeing. Now, if the diagram's to scale, it looks barely big enough for this vehicle over here, which is, I assume, is a bus from its wheel arrangement. And the other thing is that there are no less than 12 crossing points for riders sorry, for pedestrians here. There's 4. There's 4 more here, and there's 4 more up the top of the screen, which has just disappeared off of the screen there. And each time the pedestrian appears to have to cross a live lane and then is stranded in a small zone, which doesn't appear to be barriered off or anything. It's just the pedestrian is going to be left stuck between live lanes. And I am struggling to see where cyclists are supposed to ride too. There are no cycle lane markings, so presumably they have to share those rather narrow lanes with the moving traffic. Anyway, fortunately, as you probably guessed, that particular roundabout is not in the UK. It's designed for one end of a bridge in Tbilisi. And frankly, if that is built as diagrammed and doesn't turn out to be an accident black spot, I shall be very surprised indeed. So, okay, on to the next item, which is all about the security that I was talking about. Now let's just bring the photo up. There it is. That's the one I wanted. And I'll pop the link in for you as well, which I hope again will appear in the chat. Now this is the Hiplock D1000. Now I mentioned earlier that the MCN lockup was broken into, but you know, if you're needing to secure a motorcycle, maybe you have to leave it out all day in the open, or whether you're locking it away at night, you do need some decent security. Now we've all seen videos on here, I've shown them regularly, of thieves breaking steering locks by simply wrenching on the bars, and then you can push the bike away. I've also seen and shown you some videos of thieves attempting to defeat sort of desk locks with hand tools, even angle grinders, basically in broad daylight, to tackle some of the more serious shackle locks. But the problem is that the sort of weight of padlock and chain that stops thieves in their tracks tends to be weighty and pretty awkward to transport. A lot of people swear by some, you know, big Almax chains, but the big ones, you know, you could anchor a ship with the darn things. They really are very heavy indeed. So I just wanted to mention this new series of Hiplock 1000 portable motorcycle locks. Now I have talked about it before, but previously it was in a sort of limited pre-order phase, so there were a limited number. It's now available to purchase. It's in full production. So this is the smaller of the two. This is the D1000 D-Lock. There's also a more expensive DX1000 model, which is larger, and it's designed to mate with one of the pair of Hiplock ground anchors that they also produce. The A1000, which is said to be a compact rotating anchor, perfect for securing bikes in tight spaces, and the AX1000, billed as their flagship product, which is a sort of a rather weird pivoting, rotating arm thing, which basically you put through the D-lock, and hopefully that secures your bike. Now, the only thing I will say about the security that I've seen on this is people just sticking it around the spoke. If that's the case, it's a fairly easy removal of the front wheel to get the disc lock off. So I think you need to do something a bit better than just pass it around a spoke. Anyway, the locks are built around a graphene composite core, and it's said to provide both formidable resistance to angle grinder, and sort of mechanical attacks. So John Milbank, he's from the Bennett's Bike Social site. He's been testing bike locks for quite a while now, and he took the DX1000, and he said, in testing, I was able to cut the shackle with a diamond disc, and it only took one, but it still took significantly longer to cut that than any heavy-duty chain, ground anchor, or angle grinder resistant lock that I've previously beaten. And he also points out that he's making a very specialist attack that many thieves would simply not be able to make. And he points out that on the street, the typical theft is a push away where criminals snap the relatively fragile steering lock, just as I said it actually, and then push the bike off with the help of a mate on a scooter. The bike will typically be left tucked away surprisingly close while they wait to see if it's recovered using a tracker. So fitting a D-lock around the wheel will prevent this form of theft. Well, okay, it will prevent the wheel away theft. It certainly won't prevent anybody lifting in an expensive bike into a van, which also happens. So no lock is complete guaranteed 100% protection, but it does appear that this is better than most. Now, it's not cheap, it's £300. If your scooter is only worth £300, that's probably a big investment. But if you're parking a 15 grand or 20 grand bike on a street corner, I would say it's certainly saving up for the new machine after your insurance payout has fallen short of the value of your old stolen motorcycle. You'll probably save money on the raised premium as well. So the link to the destruction test I've just sent you. Right, okay, now, whilst you're here and you have a moment of time on your hands, could I just ask you please to press the like and subscribe buttons? I do this regularly, hardly anybody bothers, but the thing is that if you do that, it helps other people to recognize the show, recognize the channel, helps other people discover all my content. So like, subscribe, and that is very, very helpful. And just tell your biking buddies as well about 11s if you possibly can. Right, okay, so just after that little reminder, back to the news. Now, after the British Volt fiasco, there are two news stories about battery technology which are better than the British Volt debacle anyway. Now, first up, a team of researchers from the University of Chicago Pritzker School of Molecular Engineering have come up with a new way of extracting lithium, which they say is both environmentally friendly and efficient. Now, currently, lithium extraction requires the metal to be present in relatively high concentrations, which is why it's being extracted from salt in salt beds and that kind of thing. Demand has tripled in the last 10 years, thanks to the demand for batteries. So the search has been on for new extraction techniques. And if this particular technique can be scaled up to commercial use, it could allow the use of sources which are previously unexploitable, such as seawater. So it could hopefully reduce the cost of batteries, and that ultimately would feed into lower prices for electric vehicles. Meanwhile, a different battery technology, rechargeable air metal batteries, has also, there's some good news. Now, these are typically found in hearing aids. They do have a fairly high, at least theoretically, energy density, which means you don't need much battery to carry a reasonable amount of electrical energy. They're also said to be relatively environmentally friendly, and they're also said to be cost effective. And where they're looking to use these batteries is possibly larger scale applications like grid scale electrical storage. Now, this would be useful because, as people have pointed out regularly, when shifting towards renewable energy sources like wind and sun, it's not always windy and the sun doesn't always shine. But that doesn't mean you can't generate power and store it. And so these batteries, these metal air batteries, they do have the ability to store significant amounts of energy. But the problem has always been, to this point, making the batteries cheap enough to be manufactured on a commercially viable scale for energy storage. But a team from the University of Oxford, University College London, and Hunan University in China, they have designed a new type of catalyst which makes it possible to build these metal air battery technology batteries far more easily, to cut production costs. But one useful or possibly interesting feature is the batteries are even flexible. Now, of course, both of these projects are very much still in the research stage, but at least it is some positive news for those who keep banging on about battery technology not being up to scratch. Right, okay, now some old hat technology. You probably know the FortNine channel, and this particular new FortNine short appeared on my YouTube feed just last week. It was entitled, "Do you know of any other models that featured this unusual feature?" appallingly bad piece of headline writing. But anyway, I was sort of interested enough to succumb to what was fairly obviously clickbait to find out what it was about this 40-year-old two-stroke Suzuki that was so different and unusual. It will be something peculiar about this motorcycle, I was told, where the carburetor would normally be, it isn't. So there we go. There we have a picture of the bike. Let me zoom in a little bit on the carburetor, and you can see where it is. It's actually on the side of the engine. Now, the presenter removed the screw on the side of the engine. The other two had already been taken out, promptly dropped the cover on the ground, and surprise, surprise, there's the carb sitting beside the motor. And he says, so why would Suzuki be doing this, you may be wondering? Well, to be honest, I wasn't. I know enough about two-stroke technology to know that the carb was mounted on the side of the engine for a very good reason. But obviously it baffled the presenter. And that may have had something to do with the graphic that was supplied to go with the video. This is it. I got that in the wrong order. It's this one here. Let me just zoom in on that for you so you can see it a little bit more closely. This is a two-stroke motor, but it's a completely different design of two-stroke motor. This is a reed valve two-stroke, and the reed valve is this area here down in the corner, and basically the inlet charge comes in through here. The reed valves flex-free piece of metal or possibly plastic, and when the engine is in the sort of suck induction stroke, then the valves open up and the flow of fuel oil mixes into the engine. So back to the original picture there. Whoops, that's the wrong one. What did he say? He said, I think it's most likely just to keep the car better clean and out of the way. So obviously he knew nothing about two-stroke design. Well, obviously the carb did stay fairly clean, given the rust on much of the rest of the bike, probably a good thing. But as more knowledgeable people pointed out, this is actually a rotary disc valve engine. The disc is set on the end of the crank, and so as the crank spins, it opens and closes this rotary valve, and it basically allows it to control the two-stroke mix going into the combustion chamber. And it certainly wasn't rare. This particular motorcycle here is an RG 500 race bike. It was the one sort of similar to the one that Barry Sheene rode back in the 70s to a couple of world championships. So that bike's been around since the mid 70s. And a little research revealed that there was a patent application for a disc valve two-stroke engine as long ago as 1944 from a chap in Britain. So why our friend from FortNine was puzzled by the design, I have absolutely no idea. FortNine has produced some brilliant content in the past, but increasingly there's been some seriously dubious stuff, and it's probably not unconnected with YouTube shifting to showing so many short videos at the expense of longer, in-depth ones. Be interesting your comments on that, actually. So yeah, okay, if you want to go and see it, the FortNine video is coming up in the comment stream, and hopefully again anybody watching it after the show will be able to see it. There it is, it's going up. I'll try and put it in the description later as well. Anyway, on with the news, and the next thing I just wanted to talk about was some panniers. Now, you may recall that I reported on an unfortunate young lady who had fallen off her motorcycle after her bike was clipped by an oncoming motorhome. She was on the NC 500 route around Scotland. Now, the incident immediately came to mind when I learned the Spanish motorcycle manufacturer, luggage manufacturer SHAD, have created new hard pannier system that expands. Now, the idea of expanding panniers is hardly new. I had a set of fabric ones with a zip around them, or at least 30 years ago. My current panniers, which are again at least 10 years old, do exactly the same. But the problem is extended fabric panniers don't actually work very well. They're very droopy, so I rarely use them in the opened up position. So the idea of a stretch pannier, is an attractive one, but it would be interesting to see how SHAD managed to do this with a solid pannier. And in fact, they have an explainer video, which is again going up in the comment stream. that will show you how it works. There's a sort of wire system which is intended to keep it rigid. If you don't need the panniers, of course, they're quickly detachable, but when they do expand, they go out about 70 millimeters, 2 1/3 inches, and that's said to give the box around 40% extra storage either side, and makes each box big enough to individually hold a system helmet. But here's the downside. So now the first thing is that even when they are in the tucked in format, the thing I noticed immediately is your panniers here already extend well beyond the rider's knees. So the bike is hardly slimline. And here's the other hitch. If you're on a trip, you're probably going to have the panniers full, and that's in the extended wide mode. And if they're full of luggage, how are you going to squeeze a helmet in when you get off the bike? So it does leave me wondering how often you'll be able to use the sort of compressed format with the kit that you need, and how many times you're going to be actually using them to park your bike and pop a helmet in. It seems to me that probably it's a bit of a answer to a problem doesn't really exist, or at least not in that form. Maybe a much smaller pannier expanding half that size would have been a good idea. Anyway, the other downside, of course, is that you're also paying an expanded price. Compared with a standard SHAD pannier, £490 almost for the carbon version, and if you want the aluminium finish, then it's a massive £577, and you still need the bike fitting kit too. Right, okay, so on to today's final item. It's the in-depth feature, and today I'm going to talk briefly about a new rider hub. Now, I'm asking if this actually indicates a change of emphasis on the SMIDSY collision. Now, I did intend to run this story last week, and I'd actually already sent out the email in promising to cover this topic. And then something else happened, which left me actually talking about an accident claims law firm in Scotland, telling me about their campaign for drivers to take another look. I tried to combine the two, but basically it just got too long. So just to reiterate, last week I was talking about the campaign to take another look at junctions. The press release said the campaign was new, but it was echoing the Think Bike initiatives of the 1970s, and it was aimed at increasing motorist awareness of motorcycles and reducing accidents caused by a failure to spot them in time. Now, as I explained last week, we've had half a century of Think Bike campaigns and also Ride Bright campaigns to help drivers see motorcyclists, and they have signally failed to solve the SMIDSY collision. It's still the most common collision involving a motorcycle in the UK and in many other countries where motorcycles and cars share the road. Now, this is where I look at the mathematics. Now, there are around 100 fatal junction collisions each year in the UK, give or take a few. There may be 10 times that many, leaving riders seriously injured. Now, there are around 40 million drivers. So that means 39,998,900 will never in a year put a motorcyclist at serious risk of an injury or death. But there are only 1.2 million riders. So those 1,100 killed or seriously injured are actually a far higher proportion of the population of motorcyclists. So with those numbers in mind, my question has been for many years, doesn't it make more sense to spend your time, your money, your effort in educating riders to stay out of a junction collision rather than try to educate at least 40 times more drivers not to make a mistake that hardly any of them ever make in the first place? If you've got limited funds available, and that's what most councils, police forces, safety organisations have, then if you target riders rather than drivers, same cash should get to more motorcyclists. So it's this basic apportioning of effort which led me to sort of work on Science of Being Seen, the SOBS project, to aim the don't get into a SMIDSY information primarily at riders rather than drivers. Although I don't ignore drivers, I do have a page for drivers. I do present SMIDSY, my SOBS SMIDSY talk to driver organisations too. But primarily my audience is aimed at motorcyclists. Now, has it worked? even though I've had to do this entirely out of my own pocket, basically even what I earned going out to New Zealand to deliver it out there for their transport agency, most of that's gone straight back into research time here. I do think it has worked. It's 12 years plus since I delivered the first pilot in Kent as part of Biker Down. And I think that riders have generally become a lot more aware of terms like motion camouflage and saccadic masking. They brought puzzled frowns 12 years ago. Now people repeat them regularly. So I'm not the only one talking about these issues, of course, but for many years, I think I was the only one talking to motorcyclists about the problem. I'm pretty sure I was also the first to suggest pink as a high-vis colour for rural areas. And I was actually in the audience, incognito, I will admit, at a bike safe course in London in 2018 when the presenter mentioned pink high-vis as an alternative to the traditional yellow for rural riding. And of course, I've also been involved with the No Surprise, No Accident campaign, which is also aimed at getting riders to develop a more predictive and proactive approach to risk management. So has this protect yourself approach filtered down to other road safety campaigns? Well, the answer is no. You've seen, I've just talked about the Take Another Look campaign in Scotland, which basically says it's the driver's job to see the rider. But that's not always the case. There are signs that we may just be seeing the beginning of a change of emphasis. Now, on June the 4th, Warwickshire Police announced their usual sort of summer motorcycle safety campaign. They said they'll be out there helping motorcyclists enjoy their outings safely, which usually involves, of course, stopping them and telling them off for doing naughty things. But they also mention a new national campaign. Now, as they say that "sorry mate, I didn't see you" is a phrase commonly heard by motorcyclists who've experienced a vehicle pulling out in front of them, and that this type of incident is one of the leading causes of motorcycle collisions, the press release goes on to explain that there is a new campaign, and this is it. Let me just zoom in on that picture again for you. There it is. The Ridecraft Hub. And they say it will help riders identify a SMIDSY situation and protect themselves. So that's a very different approach to the Look Out for Bikes campaign. And they say they'll also be sharing other riding techniques provided by some of the nation's best riders. The new Ridecraft Hub website provides tips and explainers from pro riders, all aimed at helping motorcyclists to be better on their bike and to reduce harm to riders on the road. So I would say that is a genuine change of perspective from the usual "look out for bikers, wear high vis, keep your headlights on" kind of prompts that we get normally. Yeah, it would be nice if there was a hint that signs are being seen, and No Surprise had played just a teeny part in this sort of role reversal away from the usual "look hard for bikers", dress up in day glow stuff. But frankly, if it makes just one teeny bit easier for riders, one makes riders teeny bit safer, then I'm happy enough. And if you want the link to the Ridecraft Hub and Science of Being Seen and No Surprise, once again, I'll pop them on screen there. They should go up in the chat. Have a look for those. Right, okay, so that brings us to the end of today's show. Now, just a quick shout out for last week's supporters and subscribers. Christine, Claire, Dave, Living Martial Arts, Johan Motorman, he downloaded the Survival Skills ebook, Mad Cockney, and Anonymous. So thank you all very much indeed for your support. And if you want to support me on Coffee, then all you need to do is become a supporter or a monthly subscriber, and if you follow the QR code there, you can pop straight over to the Coffee page. But basically, if you do become a supporter or a subscriber, you first of all open up access to the Survival Skills on Saturday, Tips on Tuesday archive. There's 1,000+ better articles over there, but there are also other articles for regular subscribers too. So you'll certainly get more than your money's worth. I think it's the biggest resource out there on the internet. So, okay, I think that is pretty much it. Everything I have said today, I have wanted to say, I think. So, thanks for watching Elevenses. Sorry I was a little bit late. Do apologise that it's still not going out on the Facebook. I'm still waiting for Facebook to genuinely ensure that I won't get blocked again the minute I tried to reconnect my streaming software to Facebook. So back on YouTube only at the regular spot of 11 AM on Wednesday. And if you are out there enjoying your ride today, do make sure you stay shiny side up, and I'll see you next time.